Hello and welcome to Muse Jam Session Recording 147. My name is Dani Beaumont and I am a Principal Product Manager on the Adobe Muse team. I'm joined today by a couple folks, Laurel D'Angelo, who's in Product Marketing for Muse, and Dana Cooper. She's one of our quality engineers, so she's responsible for tracking down bugs and pointing them out to the engineers and validating when they're fixed. In this session today, it's kind of an introductory session focused on mobile design and how to use the alternate layout methodology in Adobe Muse. So thank you for joining us today. If you haven't done so, it's great to see you answer the polling questions on the right, just so that we can see who we got in the crowd. Looks like we've got a good bunch of folks. 75% of those who have responded to the survey are suggesting that they know Muse really well. Oh, we're up to 80%. And that you've built a number of sites. So happy to customize the session towards what you need today. You'll notice in the lower right-hand corner there's an area for questions for the presenter. That's for me. That will allow me to stop and see what the heck you're talking about if there are particular questions about what I'm presenting. At the same time, you're welcome to use chat and just ask questions. It doesn't have to be on topic. Both Laurel and Dana can keep an eye on chat and answer any stray questions that you have. We'll open the floor up to those questions towards the end of this session. All right, I'm going to switch over into the sharing mode here, and you'll notice in the upper left-hand corner I have a number of resources. I tend to do this for each of our sessions, and for mobile it's no different. As usual, I tend to always differentiate between two things. One is, as a visual designer, how you use the medium of the web, mobile devices, different platforms, different browsers, to communicate your concepts to the viewers of your site. As a designer, it's a new design medium for you, perhaps, but the rules remain the same as if you are designing for packaging, for publishing, for print, for billboards. I don't really care. For each design medium, you have to learn how to optimize for that. And one of the biggest mistakes I think that tends to be made for people that come from the world of print to the web is around typography and sizing. There's an article there that says 16-point body copy, anything less is a costly mistake. And it's really kind of interesting. We're going to all discuss this idea of alternate layouts as it compares to responsive layouts. I'm open to having a dialogue about this. I think that there are balances between the two. You'll see an article there on why separate mobile and desktop web pages. Also very thought-provoking. And then there is kind of the Muse Jam resources via Evernote link. You might want to open that up. That is an ongoing notes that I tend to take on this topic. I'm going to refer to them during the presentation, but you're welcome to keep a hold of that link and from time to time jump through that. So, having said that, let me go ahead and open up that note because it looks like I've closed it. Okay. So I'm going to keep that guy handy, and let's go ahead and start the presentation. As I mentioned, it looks like most folks have experience with Muse. Nonetheless, I'm going to kind of go through some of the basics around mobile today to make sure that we're kind of on that same page. If you are new to learning about Muse, there's a couple of places to come. One is muse.adobe.com. This is a website that the Muse team maintains. It shows off new features on the landing page. So we've had things around scroll effects in times past. There's a tutorials page. And in the tutorials page, you'll notice under Getting Started with Muse, there's how to create a mobile website with Adobe Muse CC. And that is a video. It's a pretty in-depth video. I'll go ahead and go there for a moment. So we're going to use the same asset today. But this is a 5-part, 5-minute video series where you can use the asset I am using to actually step through the process against the videos that are recorded there. So if you are brand new and you kind of want to acclimate, it's a great place to get started there. But there are other tutorials on other topics that are here as well. Another great place to hang out, especially if you've been around Muse but you haven't noticed this of late, is we've added a widgets directory to the Muse microsite. And this is, I just love this. We launched it actually in December of last year, and it's been nothing but good news if you ask me. If you are looking for a particular functionality within Muse that's not necessarily built directly into the application, this is the place you want to come. So nothing is for sale here. It points to live previews and to links where you can purchase widgets to extend your application. You'll also know in the filter tag drop down here, there's a free tag And I'm going to make sure I'm sharing my screen because that's how I roll. Bear with me a second. Yeah, I'm sharing my screen. See, it's going to be a good day already, I can tell. Okay, so these widgets are a great place to hang out. I know that a lot of times around mobile, there's questions about how to do menus. If you just search for menu in the widget directory, or alternatively, if you come to the drop-down filter tag area here, I think we've got a tag for menu. Let's just see, menu there. So what this does is brings up many, many different widgets that you can also sort by price if you'd like. So low to high, for example. And it outlines some of the widgets that are available from the community to help you extend that functionality in the app for mobile stuff. So we're going to play around with menus a little bit here, but depending on how your life is, you may decide to spend $9 and buy a starter widget that you can customize rather than actually create it from scratch. But we are going to cover that over a little bit today. The finished site that we're looking at in today's work, let's just see, is called designisfun.com. And you're welcome to kind of browse there in your own browser. I'm playing a trick a little bit here, and I have a new widget that we're going to show off today. It's from Ali Pordelli at cookie.com. And yeah, I kind of want to think for a second, but maybe I won't. All right, I'm going to come back. Let's just talk a little bit about the idea of responsive versus alternate layouts. So to a large extent, folks are designing websites for pretty much three classes of devices. There's a desktop design, and then there's the idea of tablets, and then the idea of phones. And there are kind of different schools of thought around how to design content there. And as I mentioned, the articles that I pointed you to take you through that process a little bit. One mindset says that I can design all of the content on a page so that no matter what layout it's going to go, it will respond to the width of the browser and appropriately scale content or move content around to adjust to that layout. So the widget directory, for example, has a responsive layout for it. This is actually a Shopify backend for this particular part of the Muse microsite. So I'm showing you kind of true responsive for a moment. And the idea is as I drag along here, the items are all fine, but I hit a point, what's known as a breakpoint, and it starts to scale content. You'll notice that all of my tiles got smaller when I hit that breakpoint. So they scaled to a particular breakpoint or layout. And then as I come along, when it gets kind of, and you'll notice in some ways this is kind of classic responsive behavior. Things are sort of breaking a little bit because they're in a funny little middle ground. It's not a phone, it's not a tablet at the moment. It's kind of smaller than a tablet. Notice as I get into the range of a phone, I get a single column layout. So this is using a methodology known as responsive design. Muse today does not use responsive for our methodology for designing. Instead, the way you work within Muse is you design alternate layouts. So if we come to the home page of Design is Fun here, let's go ahead and just jump in a little deep kind of straight away. I'm going to open up Muse and show you that source design for a moment. In the world of alternate layouts, what you'll do is it's somewhat similar to breakpoints. You'll come in and be able to design what you want to absolutely design for mobile, tablet, and smartphone. So you'll notice for this Design is Fun example, I have a desktop layout and it has content here. I went in and created a tablet layout and I changed its structure. So because tablet is more narrow, I just did a quick comp here just to give you the idea. But I've gone in and instead of a 3-column structure, I've gone to a 2-column structure for my tablet layout. And in my phone layout, I've gone to a 1-column structure. Now, all of the content that is here is repeated on each layout. But what it allows me to do is really design for that class of devices. Now, the other methodology that the Muse team uses in the world of alternate layouts is something known as viewport scaling. So you'll notice here in the phone layout for a moment, if I come in and take a look at a page in that phone layout, if I preview this phone layout, so I'm definitely in the phone layout here, See if I can say phone layout one more time, all in a row. I preview here for a moment. Notice that I can choose my orientation, be it landscape or portrait. And notice how a little refresh happens there when I do that. What we do is we look, looks like I might have even broken it there in refreshing. Okay. I can come in and choose from different classes of devices. You'll notice I have Samsung Galaxy, which is rather large in comparison to, let's say, an iPhone 5, which is smaller. What we do in this viewport scaling is we look at the class of devices and we scale the content to be 100% width of that device. If I rotate my device and go landscape, I'm looking at viewport scaling of the same content that scales to the class of that device once again. So this is the methodology that we employ. I have a trick that I'm going to show you here. So Ali Pordelli, he and I had some dialogues about this, and it's kind of interesting to me because when a designer goes to a web page and wants to decide if it's responsive, what a designer tends to do is drag the edge of the browser and see if the layout changes. In a truly responsive world, you're going to load a single set of elements that have some back-end rules. They're going to change percentages as you work. In order to kind of illustrate that concept, relying on Adobe Muse's alternate layout, Ali Pordelli has created a widget that allows you to dynamically load the alternate layouts into the browser. And what he's doing is also loading up those layouts in the background, so there's no real speed hit to that behavior. So here I am, just to kind of keep your brain straight here for a moment. I've gone in and designed alternate layouts in Muse. I've got tablet, smartphone, and desktop. But what I'm doing is with a widget, I'm making a query very quickly in the browser to grab that alternate layout at breakpoints that I define. So here I am in that desktop design. I'm going to drag to about where I think a tablet layout will occur. And what happens is very subtly there in the background, notice that I'm redirecting to that alternate layout, tablet. If I press and drag again and get down to the range of a phone layout, can't really see it in the URL because it's getting chopped off here, but notice it's dynamically loading the phone layout. I can then come in and interact in my desktop with my phone design. So this tool, this does not substitute for alternate layout, for a responsive design. But what it does do is allow you as a designer, you can sit with your client, you can review the phone design, you're looking at the actual alternate layout for phone, and show that to your client. You can test it as you're working. Notice I'm coming here, I'm hitting that breakpoint, and I'm going to press and drag out a little bit further to that next spot. Now I've gone all the way to the end very, very quickly, and with the next half hour, I'm going to now break down all the steps it took for me to get to this place. And yes, the icing on the cake will be that Ali's going to hold off in telling you too much about that widget until we're ready, because I want to give a little bit more context. So I am going to look at chat, see if the world is exploding. You guys are dead quiet, so let's keep going. Let's go ahead and look at the design that we've got for this site. So here I am in Muse, and I'm going to go back to my plan mode, into my desktop view. Let's go to a sort of a before state of this site. I want to show you how I would build out tablet and smartphone layouts. So we're going to go to the start and open up that file. Okay, so what you'll notice is in a very simple form, let's see if I can do this. You know, I swear it has something to do with when Dani is presenting, I get into this stuck state. Oh, Dana, since you're looking, I still tend to get stuck, young woman. So bear with me. I've never learned how to get out of this stuck state, so I'm just going to have to step out. Pardon me. It's doing so well. Okay. I know some people live to see product managers squirm. I'm going to open this guy again. So what I did for the record is when you update your site, Muse keeps track of changes. And if you use in-browser editing to make edits to a site, it wants to alert you that the live version might be newer than your local version. But at least in my experience, if I don't click on all the right update dialog boxes there, I get kind of stuck. So I'm going to reopen my application. And we're going to go back to Design is Fun. I'm going to appropriately click the OK button and review later so that I don't get stuck. Okay, so what I have here is, notice there's a plus sign for tablet and a plus sign for phone. To begin with, I have a rather very simple layout for desktop that I'd like to now start to use for my tablet and smartphone design. So as you work, the mindset of the Muse team when we initially implemented mobile, having done a lot of research, is that quite often when you do a phone layout as compared to a desktop layout, let's say, the information that you're going to use on the phone layout is probably not going to be as verbose as what you did on the desktop. You're probably going to do a subset, and you're going to want to design for that medium, not just have things auto-magically restack or restructure. So if I want to go to these new layouts now, I'm going to come into my plan mode, and I can create a tablet and a smartphone layout. Now I do want to mention, when I say File, New Site, I can always begin with any layout I choose. So there's an option here to define the initial layout. Some folks talk about mobile first and that they design for phone and tablet before they even get around to desktop. My mind is more to the extreme rule, and I've usually seen more details on the desktop computer than on a tablet or phone. So I usually start with desktop and then move over to phone after a fashion. I also tend to make my desktop design something that can load on a tablet because it does become less overhead to maintain less layouts, if at all possible. I'm going to go ahead and hit cancel here. I've gone in and created that first top design. So at this point I can add a tablet or add a phone. Now in the design that we're working with, I've got just a single page site. It's obviously a demo. It's a very simple site. But I want to come in and make a change here for the tablet. So I'm going to go ahead and select tablet. And notice that I can now add a tablet layout, and it's going to copy from the desktop the site plan, page attributes, and the browser fill if I choose to do that. When I click OK, you may have assumed that all of the page content is going to come. We made a conscious decision with that, and that was having spoken to designers and really worked with them. We found that they usually want to copy over the content that is meaningful to them rather than go on in and delete all the things, let's say, from the desktop that they don't want to apply to phone, for example. Now, if I come back to the desktop layout, there is a new feature that we've implemented called synchronized text. And I kind of I caveat it because you're going to see a little bit. In some ways, I think it's a young feature that can be used in certain ways, but in other ways, we need to kind of mature the feature for different use case scenarios. We would love to get your feedback on this, and if you've tried it and what use cases you have here. But let me explain a little bit. I've got content here on the site that I'm looking at, and I've got some text. Synchronized text has one requirement, which is kind of a killer, and that is that any container of text must have a single set of styling. So you'll notice in this design that I have, I've got text, section 1, 2, and 3, and they're in their own container. And then I've got some Greeking here, lorem ipsum, just placeholder text. I've got the same down here, except I've got section 4 as part of this text. What I'm going to do is specifically cut that out of its container and then paste it back so that it has its own container. So the text that I'm going to try to synchronize my layouts here does need to be each in their own container if the styling will be different. So since this is larger than this one, I've got them in separate containers. Now what I'm able to do is come in under Window to the, let's just see, Content, I think it's called. There you go, the Content container. And I now can come in and add flagging content if I want these individual elements to repeat layouts, as long as the styling can stand alone, which does become a tough one. Here, let's say to section 4. And let's just try this. I'm going to go in and create a collection. Let's try both these ideas, items, and click OK. Now you'll notice I kind of broke things a little bit there. I have section 4 and I have some text. Now before you do that, I'm going to go on into my paragraph styles. Let's see, paragraph styles. And notice I have paragraph styles defined here. I've got section 4 is using subhead, but it's, if I look at it, the override is that it's a white color and it's aligned left. And then my text down here is using body text. Again, also white color, automatically aligned left. So what I'm going to do for items that I do want to synchronize across layouts is and then I'm going to go to that data or content widget that I just had out here a moment again. There you go. Drag this guy as present. I'm going to look at my paragraph styles, make sure that guy is present as I work. What I want to do is a bit of a dance here. So a section 4, I'm going to go ahead and add it as a collection item. And I might go ahead and give it a name. We'll call this section 4, so I can easily find it. And then I'm going to go back and make sure I apply that styling that I predefined. So I can reapply it, so it forgets it for a moment there. I want the text to be white, and I want it to be left aligned. I'm going to do the same for my body text here. So go on into that object. We're going to add this and call it section body. Or actually, we'll call it section 4, body 4. And I want to go ahead and apply, I believe we had body text on that object. And I'm going to make sure that it's also white. Now keep an eye on that. I'm probably going to be a wimp today and just do that with some of my elements so that I can show this off sort of in the spirit of time. My little circle's not looking so round to me. Let's check that. 995, 140 by 140. Looks like I need a little bit more room at the top. Okay, I feel better about that. This also has a heading applied. I'm not going to be dangerous and see what happens if I redefine that style. So I'm going to go ahead and apply that synchronized text to this as well. And we'll call this forehead and enter that. Looks like it preserved things pretty well with that heading style. Okay, so I've defined these as synchronized elements. And as I mentioned, to be fair, I probably should be doing that for all of these elements. Notice that I now get a little call out here indicating section 4, body 4, and head 4. I'm going to call that head 4 because it's all about well-structured content. So I renamed it and that worked there. Okay, at this point I want to bring this content over to my phone layout. Now, when you're jumping between layouts, there's a couple of ways you can be really effective. Whenever I present to you guys, I use a single monitor, but I tend to use 2 monitors at my desk. And one of the things I like to do is under Window here, arrange my panels so that I can see multiple pages side by side. So I could look at phone and desktop together. Because I'm on a limited display here, I'm going to use a jump to command. If I hit Command J, it allows to go to or jump to a particular page. So what I want to do is go ahead and look at the master page for desktop here. So I'm going to type in master, and I've got a master so far for the tablet and the desktop. I'm going to go ahead and jump to that desktop tablet, or that desktop master, and I'm going to select my content here. I'm going to get rid of these guys, I don't need them. Got a header and a footer. I'm going to go ahead and copy those. And let's go ahead just to illustrate that synchronized text bit one more time. I've got titling text here. I'm going to go in and call this site head 4, or just site head because it's generic. Now that's got that style and it's being preserved, you'll notice as well. So I'm going to come in and copy all of this onto the clipboard. I'm going to hit Command J and I'm going to type in master, which allows me to go now to my desktop master pretty quickly. So I like that jump or command, go to command there. I'll zoom out a little bit here. Now the dimensions are a little bit different, so when I paste everybody in place, you notice that my mobile design is a little different. in its structure. I'm sorry, because this is for my tablet. I'm going to come and grab the elements that I have here and just kind of get them in place. And I'll probably give myself some guides so that as I'm designing, I'm in a better place. Let's try this guy here. I'm going to do that. And then let's just give myself a center guide. This is less about design, is always my excuse, and more about methodology. So I don't want to spend too much time on the design. Okay. All right, so I've now got my tablet layout for my master page items. Notice that now that I'm here in my tablet design, that site head is still attached or associated with my desktop design. So let me go ahead, before we go any further, let me just show you how that works. What if I think that design can be difficult? What if I'm not a designer and I change my mind about some text there? You'll notice that I have two master pages, right? Here's my desktop master. Switch over to my tablet master, and I've got the new layout with the word design is fun. If I come back to desktop and I say, you know what, design can be challenging. Case in point, when your text box is not big enough. Let's try that again. I don't want to break my layout at all, so I'm going to make this longer. So design can be challenging. And I'm going to click off. If I now go back to site plan, there's design can be challenging in my master page for my desktop. If I switch over to tablet, you know what? There it is. I do need to make sure my container is big enough without breaking that layout there by design. Let's see. But notice, let me just kind of nothing up my sleeve here for a moment. Here on my tablet design, it says design can be challenging. If I go back to desktop without touching anything, design is still challenging. Go back to tablet, say I get an indicator that design really isn't challenging. It can be amazing. Now when I close this out and go back to my desktop layout, I notice, all right, it's changing the text, but the styling is preserved as long as you have a single style between containers. I'm going to go back to the tablet. Now this is where the world gets interesting. For a tablet design, that's a great headline. I really believe in amazing text or amazing design, but the text is much too large for this particular layout. So I can come in and say, you know what, for my tablet, I really want that to be 36 points. So I can change it. I may also decide, just to sort of prove it, that it really needs to have that incredible, terrible orange color assigned to it for design to truly be amazing. So I've changed the font size. I've changed the font color. You'll notice if I go back to my plan mode, it's making that change on my tablet, but the desktop is still white. It's still the same point size that I defined. So in this way, I'm able to alter my content between layouts if I structure them as separate containers. Now let's kind of keep going with the work that we're doing. I'm back here on my desktop mode, and I want to bring over all the other design elements that are on the page. So I'm going to come in and say select all, and I'm going to copy. So file, actually edit, copy. And then I'm going to go back. I'm going to hit that J command again and go to my tablet, not my master in this instance. We're going to go to the home page for the tablet device with that fabulous orange text there. And I'm going to paste my page content. Now quickly you see illustrated the world of alternate layouts or designing for multiple devices. I say, okay, great. I, as a designer, do not want magic to occur here when it comes to mobile. I want to control how this is going to look on a tablet. So what I'm going to do, because I haven't got much time, is I'm going to go ahead and create a two-column structure here. I'm just going to drag these guys here. And then I could fiddle a little bit. Shouldn't take me too long. But if I come on down, zoom out a little bit more, I get the remainder of my content set down here at the bottom more. And for my section 3, I'm just going to kind of rethink it a little bit. So I will drag the container into place. And this is where Muse is, I think, pretty amazing and useful in that when you come in and define elements, I'm going to do this guy rather quickly if I can. Let's see how we do. I have a funny shadow on the object, so it's going to behave a little funny. Let's see if I can do this. Get this guy to fit. And then I think I lost my funny shadow. I'm going to go in and select that. Come on. Let's try this. All right, we're going to let the funny shadow be for now. And I'm going to bring over some of my elements. I've got my section 3 that I want as a bit of a sidebar here. This is an example of where I might reduce my size content based on what I'm doing. I'm going to bring over a form. For now, we're going to let it be, but I probably would resize it. Let's just see. A little bit more. Now you'll notice this is a widget. It's a widget that's been styled that I'm able to come in and simply resize the widget. I don't have to redefine it. I don't have to change all the up, over, down, and active states. I can just come in and drag around my widget elements to fit this new layout. Now, as we know, I went in and I synchronized texted this content down here. So I am able to now come in, define this guy as 100% width object again, and move it up into position. And as I mentioned, for things like my widget, I've got, let's see, I've got a slideshow here that I'm going to just sort of press and drag into a new location, come on in and change the way that slideshow fits to better suit this design. And let's see, we know that when Dani gets stuck attempting to design, we lose all sense of time. So I'm going to try to stay focused. I'm going to come into my thumbnails. I can come to individual thumbnails and just resize them until they fit the design that I'm working with. I'm not going to muss with it too much now. Kind of squish these guys in. We'll let them be for now. I may get rid of one because all the news that fits we print, as Rolling Stone magazine likes to put it. And we'll get section 4 here and get that guy into position. I can resize it here. Now once again, I want to point out, I may decide that section 4, because I'm on a tablet, should be much bigger and a very sexy shade of green this time. I can make those changes, and I can still come in and change my mind about what section 4 says. So if I go back to plan mode, I now have my desktop layout and I have my tablet layout. If I want to come in and take a look at it, section 4, it's all good. I might say, oh, let's say I decide it needs a lowercase s for section 4. Just to prove this again, back in plan mode, I go to the desktop instance and look at my design. Indeed, it changed the text without changing the color or the font, as long as they're in their own separate containers. So I kind of don't like that change, so I'm going to put it back. All right, so I now have my tablet set up. The next thing I would do is come in and build out my phone layout. Now, as you're working, depending on the work you're doing, sometimes putting things in library items can allow you to have a lot more flexibility. I'm going to come in here. Yeah, we'll let that be. Let's go on in and do a phone layout. In fact, I'm going to, what am I going to do? She said, talking to herself. I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to come into the phone layout, and I'm going to say, go ahead and copy the site plan from the desktop and bring everything over. That's fine. And I'll click OK. And I now have a phone layout. Now you'll notice if I come into this master page, under page properties, we're defining a default size for that phone layout. Things to keep in mind that are really interesting is that you have the ability to define, you may want a page width that's larger for your phone layouts. Depends on your design requirements. Don't worry, because we will use viewport scaling to scale whatever you define to the width of the device. So that will dynamically scale. Let's go in and build this out a little bit. I'm going to have home, and then I'm going to have my sections. So section 2, section 3, and section 4. Now I'm going to have obviously a series of pages here. Now there's a feature that I'm going to show you, and that's the responsive, not the responsive, but the alternate layout switcher that Ali Pordelli mentioned. And one thing that you want to keep in mind is you'll notice that I've got a home page on the desktop, I've got a home page on my tablet, and I've got a home page on my phone. So I have corresponding name pages. The phone layout is going to end up having separate content. Let's go ahead and do a little bit of before and after magic. I'm going to close this out because I want to jump ahead. I think I've given you a sense of how you would build out the site structure between the three alternate layouts. I have a lot more I still want to cover. So let's go and just look at a more finished version of that. All right, so there's my phone layout. My desktop layout, my tablet layout, and now I have a phone layout here as well. Okay, so if I come in now and wanted to look at my site, and I wanted to kind of employ this trick that Ali Pordelli has put together, let's talk about that trick a little bit. Unless you guys have already been talking about it, probably beat me to it. I'm not going to upgrade right now. This is the wrong Evernote. Okay. So Ali Pordelli actually just pushed this live like last night on my behalf. And let's talk a little bit about how that works. I'm just going to go to the right spot here. So this is called Layout Shifter. And what Ali has done is he's got a widget that is using some back-end code that will take responsibility for loading up all three layouts. Now one might argue that the beauty of alternate layouts is that you're only loading up the layout that you need for that device. And what I want to be clear about is this is really for demonstration purposes on a desktop device so that you can easily see your tablet and phone layouts without having to go load up those devices or load up a simulator. So notice that Ali has gone in and laid out this page, and he's got his design elements here, and it's kind of a two-column structure. He's got a little bit of disco because that's how Ali works. And this is my basic desktop layout. As I press and drag, I get to a break point. There's the tablet layout. So he's defined the point at which it should switch to the other alternate layout, which is tablet. If I drag again, it takes me to the phone layout. Now, just like we did on my design, Ali is free to come in and make text larger or smaller for each of those layouts. He's free to come in and change and delete. He may decide that the desktop view needs something very different than the phone view. There should be much less detail. And he's free to add or remove anything he wants. Using the synchronized text feature, as long as you have these separate containers, anything that you change on one of the layouts will retain the styling on the other layouts while allowing you to change the content. So it works really well. Let's go ahead and look at how I can implement that widget. And this is a widget that's for sale. I think Ali does not usually break your bank, in my opinion, so I think it's $6.99 to purchase it. And you can click a link and go there to the store where he's selling that. But let's kind of look at it in action. So here I am in my desktop mode, tablet and phone. What I want to do is come into the master page of all of my layouts. I've already done it here, but I'm going to delete it and show you how I did. So I'm going to go to the master page. It has to be on a master. Now this, you can have multiple masters as long as the parent master, the most senior master, has it. And I'm going to go into my widget library, and I'm going to select this layout shifter. I'm going to press and drag it on the canvas. What you'll notice is that you come in and define, based on when you went in and said new layout for desktop, tablet, and smartphone, you get to set how large that page is. So you set your own breakout points for a tablet layout and a phone layout. You can decide, notice under existing layouts, let's say you don't have a tablet layout in your design. You don't have to create one. Just make sure you uncheck the checkbox here. I'm going to go ahead and make sure it's a footer just to get it out of my way. I'm going to press and drag it into the bottom corner there. And now when I go and look at the site, so if I go to designisfun.com, notice here's my desktop layout. What Ali is saying is that he's loading those other layouts in the background. There's no real speed hit. So when I get to that second spot, see how quickly it just comes in and is loading that other alternate layout. So I'm going to be really candid. Responsive design says that when you are within a class of devices, if you remember the first thing that I showed you, which is not me breaking this page, the reason why I'm breaking this page, just to be really clear, is that I need parity between my pages. Remember how I have designisfun.com, and then if I come down to my tab, my home page in essence. It goes to the home page there, and then the home page for the phone. If you really want this to work across all three layouts for all pages, it's important that you have a named page that matches across each of those designs. So I know I have a home page, but if I went to, let's say, section 3 page on the phone, I'd need to have a section 3 on the desktop for it to actually match thoroughly. Okay, I got a lot to cover here, so I'm going to kind of keep going. The other things that I want to talk about are menus. So if we look at my phone layout, I've got kind of, and this is why I love being able to show alternate layouts in my desktop, because I can't show you my phone. But if I switch to the phone layout by dragging my edges here to that phone layout, notice I've got an interesting menu behavior here. The way it works is I can show the menu to get my content. It moves all active page content out of the way, and then I can hide it. I guess in the industry this is known as a hamburger font. I don't eat hamburgers very much, but it could be a veggie burger font too. But this is basically a stack that is sort of the universal symbol these days for letting people know there is a menu that's out there. And let me show you how I could create that in Muse. So I'm here in my design, and if we go, let's go ahead and jump to my master for the phone, and I'll jump over there. And I've got the work done here a little bit, and I'm going to show you how I created this. So let's just press and drag this off to the side. You have a couple choices for how this guy is handled. But in its most basic sense, what you want to do is create an icon. I'm not sure who that belongs to. I'm going to drag it off here a little bit. Not really sure who that belongs to either. So I want to have an icon here, and just for simplicity's sake, we're going to make a little hamburger on the fly here. So I'm going to draw a container that I'm going to fill with white. Make sure it has a stroke of none. And I'm just going to dupe it, just so you see that there's nothing up my sleeve. It's a very simple little menu. I know. My talents are lost as a product manager. Alright, so what I want to do now is make it such that when you click on that, it shows the menu items. Now the way I want to do that is very simple. Widgets within Muse are incredibly powerful, especially when you nest them with one another. I'm going to go to the widget library, and I'm going to select under panels the accordion panel and press and drag it out on the canvas. Now I want to have a very simple accordion that has only one pane here, this guy right here. And I'm going to go ahead and come on in and just delete some of the text that's here. So I'm going to delete this guy. I've got text that's here as well. I really want this to be a pretty dumb container. So notice that I've got the accordion here, and I've got it expanded with content there as well. So this is really almost like a hotspot or a trigger where whenever you click in this menu, I want it to show the accordion drop-down. So notice if I click on this widget, I can close all, so I can select that, sure, if someone clicks on this accordion, it totally goes away. And I also can choose to overlap items below or not. We don't want to overlap them. We want to leave that unchecked, because what that will allow us to do is when I expand this object, the content is going to move anything on the page down below it. So I now have this accordion set. The next thing I want to do is in my widgets library, I want to go into my menu, and I can just grab a vertical menu here and press and drag it onto the canvas. Now I'm not going to take the time to style it at the moment because Muse is magical. Notice it says Home, Section 2, Section 3, and Section 4. Now if I want Home to really be called Section 2 or Section 1, so that it looks good in the menu, but it works with Ollie's widget that jumps between pages, I can do that. I'm going to go out to my plan mode, and on my phone layout, I'm going to make sure that in the page properties for home here that the page title is called home, but the page name, I always get these backwards. We're going to try section 02. 1 actually. Click OK. So now it's called section 1, but if I look at it in the browser, it will be called home, which means it will work when I jump between layouts. Okay, so here I am. I got section 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to press and drag that into my container. I'm not sure what's big over there. Let's try this again. So I'll drag it right there. It grows the container to fit my menu. And then I get that cute behavior where the accordion collapses or the accordion expands. I can now press it. Let's try this again. Make sure I've got the whole object. I'm going to press and drag it into position here. And let's get rid of our example over there. And let's just preview this page really quickly in the browser. Now it's a phone layout. It's going to be a little odd in the browser. But notice how I'm getting that expand and collapse. Now this is a master page item. I can come into that accordion and bring it on down a little bit so that my section starts where I'd like it to start. And when I close this out, I'm going to make sure it's collapsed in its default state. When I close that out, and then go to any of my individual pages. Let's go on in and preview site in browser. Make sure I go into that phone layout here. So for that, I'm going to just, instead of tablet, I'm going to try phone. And notice how I'm getting that behavior. Again, it's not style, but I'm getting that drop down. That's one kind of menu. Another one that I see, I think we call it the super mega menu widget. How's that for a mouthful? Let's see if I can get to an example of that rather quickly. So we had a demo site when we were big on this called the WildIsles.com, I think. Alright, so many of you that have been around for a while remember this asset from a few years back. A super mega menu widget is one where I can come to, notice I've got regular menu items here, but the gear guide had a whole lot of detail. So I wanted to add that in there, but I want to have this nice behavior where when I roll off of the trigger or the target, it goes away. But when I'm in this target, I can actually click on a button, I can click on a link. So it remains open while I do that until I roll off either the trigger or the target. So if I wanted to create something like that, I'm going to come into the desktop mode, and I need an excuse for this to happen. So I'm just going to steal a little bit here as usual. Let's try a little section 1. And section 1 wants to be here. I'm going to make sure I put that on a layer so it is visible. So I'm going to move to the master nav layer. We'll make it a black or white on black, and I might say something like more here. More. And the way I'm going to do that is instead of using an accordion, this time I'm going to use the tooltip widget. So I'm going to go into the widget library, stop clicking. Under compositions, I'm going to press and drag good old tooltip onto the canvas. I'm going to delete the second and third instances of this guy, so I have one trigger and one target. You know, depending on what you're doing, I'm going to even use another one. Everything in this category, just so you know, when we put everybody in a folder there, they're usually pretty interchangeable. I just want to make this guy go away. It wants to stay forever. Okay. Let's try just the blank little widget here. It'll do the same thing. Get rid of the second. First instances. Got my guy all clear. I've got my trigger here that I'm going to drag over more. And then I've got a resulting target that's here. Let's go ahead and give this a fill so we can see what the heck we're doing. So isn't going to be highly fashionable, but I'll give it rounded corners just to make everybody really happy. That's pretty terrible, but be kind. Look, we'll even square up this one terrible corner because they're attached to one another. It's not going to help, I know. Okay, but in this area now, I could easily come in and grab, let's say I jump over to my phone layout. So I'm going to jump to my master on my phone. And just so that we're all looking at the same stuff, I'm going to grab this menu for a moment. Jump back over to the master on the desktop. If I go to the right place, master desktop right here. Now it looks like I'm putting it on the actual page, which is fine. No big deal. I'm going to paste this in here. And I'm going to make sure that that also is on the right layer. Now you'll notice I only have one page here, so this is kind of a silly example, but I think you guys get the gist. I'll leave that one, and let's pretend we really wanted this phone button to be here too. What I want to do in setting up this widget is you want to say that it is scattered, I believe. You want to show the target on roll over. You want to hide the target on roll out of trigger or target, trigger and target. And I get the nice fade behavior. So lastly, I think I want to come in and say hide all initially. And I don't want to show all in design mode. So let's just take a quick look and see how we did there. All right, we've got a page, we've got more. I can roll over more. I can come inside and click on these guys. I can roll off of the target or roll off of the word more. So hopefully that helped. The thing that I will again encourage you to do is go on into the Muse widgets world, go to the menu drop down, and check out some of these guys. Again, you can look, some of them are free, some cost money. All right, I have blown through a lot around mobile. My questions for you guys is, what are your questions? So will the feature be made responsive in web design? It is in the next Muse update. If there's one thing that the Muse team doesn't do is talk about stuff that we're doing until we're ready to announce that we're doing it. That way we deliver more than we promise. I think all of you know that engineering is amazing. Our engineering team is amazing. We have nothing to talk about right now. So we're not going to talk about future. But for the moment, we do continue to look at how to make alternate layouts work really well. I encourage you to go and hang around folks like Cookie.com and Muse Themes and 123muse.com, Muse Grid as well. They are all doing things that are kind of encouraging Muse by way of widgets to have more of a fluid, responsive behavior using the exact feature set that we have now. So stay tuned, but definitely play with some of that work that's there. There's a question around making a page with password protection. There are some widgets that are out there, but the truth is when you want, it depends on the nature of the password protection that you want. If I browse to a page and I have one password for anyone that logs into that page to access it, you can do that with a widget that's in the widget gallery or the widget directory. I think Muse Themes has one for sure. If instead you're saying, I want to set up some private pages and I want users to be able to log into those pages and I want to give each user their own username and password, you would need to create what's known as a secure zone and create up user identities and give usernames and passwords to those folks. You can do that on the Adobe Business Catalyst backend hosting platform. So if when you publish to Muse, you upgrade to a regular Adobe Business Catalyst site, you can pay to make a higher end version of that site that allows you to enable a back-end database that will allow you to secure those pages. But if you think about it for a moment, there has to be a database in the back that keeps track of each user, their password, whether or not they have access to certain pages. If that's what you're looking for, you need a CMS in the back, and Adobe Business Catalyst can do that for you. But if you just want a password, same password for anyone that comes to the site, you can do that using a widget today from some of our widget providers. What else, folks? Kind of looking at chat. Seeing if anything else is up for you folks. You may have noticed that we're going to have a new jam session Thursday talking about what's new in Muse. If I were you and you don't know what we've been working on of late, I would come to that session. Can't tell you why, because until we announce there's something, we don't have something. Laurel D says we're there. So what I'm going to do is stop this, go ahead and grab the recording link for you and share it up. I encourage you to come back next week and give us your feedback on some of the new work we've been doing for Muse. Looks like there's one last question. I missed the beginning of this. Will it be available later? Yes. Give me about 2 minutes, maybe a minute and a half. I'm going to go ahead and generate a recording link, and I'll be right back.